Well, welcome to the TWIJ Show. I'm Chris Wink. I am your host, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Technically, a news site about local economies in change. Each week, the TWIJ Show dives into topics on building better companies with leaders who are doing just that. We are an extension of Technically's This Week in Jobs newsletter, which you can join at Technically Subscribe. Today, we're going to be talking about changing strategy quickly, something we might be all working on right now. I'm joined by Dipanwita. She is the CEO and founder of Sorcero, an enterprise language intelligence platform company. They have a team of 21 people and offices in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of DC. They just closed a $3 million bridge round, and they are working on a Series A. Before founding the startup in 2017, she started and ran a digital transformation consulting firm, 42 Strategies. I also have Shana Glenzer. She's now the VP of Marketing and Communications at Diligent, a 1,000-person company with $300 million in annual recurring revenue. That since 2001 has been behind the SaaS platform for corporate and board governance. Previously, she had held prominent roles at several DC tech firms, including CrowdScout, Make Offices, Aquacore, Social Radar, and a bunch of others. Shana, Dipanwita, I imagine nothing has changed in your lives at all the last couple of weeks. Is that true? Can you confirm that or deny that?
Well, thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. It's lovely to be here. And it's also really nice to have this contrast between the 21-person startup and the 1,000-person company.
That's the goal.
That's also really eager to hear from you, Shana. I sent an email out to the rest of the team 2 days ago which says everything has changed and nothing has changed at the same time. And that's sort of where we are at Sorcero. Personally, we found ourselves, closing a bridge round in what happened in the middle of a pandemic, although it wasn't intended that way. But what it really forced us to do... Wait,
you didn't plan to close around a pandemic? That was not a plan. That
was not a plan, no. The idea was to close around and then maybe take a week off.
Right.
Let me just say, is not happening. But what is happening is that a very nimble team that was somewhat distributed to begin with is now realizing that they may stay distributed for much longer. So the biggest strategic focus right now as a team, because we're on that growth path and going from 21 to potentially 30 and up, is how do you maintain culture and productivity and efficiency as we're constantly onboarding new people into a early stage startup that's metamorphosing a little bit every day. So that's really where all of our strategic thinking is happening, where changes are happening, where approaches are changing. So we're investing probably 3, 4, 5 times as much more time in briefings, in company all hands, in open sessions to make sure that the knowledge gap is bridged and that there is a sense of unity and the sense of a unit through this time. There's also a bunch of work we're doing on mental health, but particularly, maybe we can talk after that about that a little later.
Oh, there'll be plenty. Shana, I can assume nothing has changed whatsoever. It might as well just be January for you.
Yeah, I think just another day here in Washington, D.C. And how quickly they changed. I remember going into the office. I think the last time I was in the office was St. Patrick's Day, wearing my green. And so I didn't get pinched, and it was like a lure. But anyway, so I was in the office, and and here we are, so many weeks later, and I'm home again. And so, I mean, the good news is that, healthy, safe. But I think that's where our first focus was when we had to shift strategy. Our strategy shift to work from home actually went as seamlessly, honestly, as I could have imagined with a 1,000-person company. A huge kudos to our IT team. So the actual infrastructure and the shift was kind of outstanding. Of course, the same kind of WebEx or other internet issues that everybody else had in the beginning. When the West Coast comes online, you're sort of expecting a several second delay in your WebEx. But I think so. First and foremost, we really focus as a company on the safety of our employees and making sure that we were communicating with them. Just as Dee said, like in several times a week from our CEO on down, and really over communicating with them. And then what became really clear to us right away after the pandemic hit was that our customers were really going to need help during this time. a provider of modern governance solutions for boards and company leadership. And they were fast tracking this digital transformation that at its speed and scale that they, never imagined. So the conversations were sort of, how can we help them do this thing that's for some of them completely new to them, hosting, board meetings online, using technology that they've sometimes never tested, never used before. So it really meant a huge shift towards focus on our customers, and then and positioning Diligent, as this secure collaboration solution during this time, and kind of expedited look at the future of work. But then everything else had to take a back seat, obviously. So it was a big shift.
And I want to make sure that we reflect on the idea that COVID is not the first time that technology companies have had to change strategy so quickly. That said, it's probably the first time that everyone has changed strategy all at once in some form. So let's start with COVID, but I want to make sure we talk more broadly. But with COVID-19 first, could you guys get me maybe inside one of those first meetings you had when it became really clear that something dramatic was happening, and maybe just even some of the language or approach you had to take with either a leadership team or broader team or a unit, your reports, whatever makes most sense. Paint me a picture of one time in which you had to say, our strategy that we had last week is now gone. What does that feel like, and what does that sound like?
Sure. I mean, I probably can go first. So the first thing happened is that March 12th is the exact date we went remote. And the reason we went remote, the trigger for it was very interesting. We'd had a visitor in our office who, we were already doing no contact and elbow bumps and that sort of thing. So that was already happening. But we had a visitor in our office who later on we discovered had fever. And we didn't know what was going on. So we said, well, preventively, as of tomorrow, everyone is working from home indefinitely. The next thing I did was I basically sent daily bulletins on the visitor's health and also the health of everyone who was exposed to them.
Oh, interesting. You were like contact tracing.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, till we knew that visitor did not have COVID, was completely healthy, and so were we all. I think it was really important for our team because we are distributed to begin with, and the leadership of the company had been exposed to the visitor. So there was a certain degree of nervousness about what happens if the leadership falls ill in a time when we're still really discovering what this is all about. So I think the first was over communicate, and I got a ton of notes from my team saying that they really appreciated the clarity, the steadiness. The next thing we did was we forced everyone, made it mandatory that everyone take at least a day or two off that didn't count towards PTO. It just gave them some time to get their quote unquote affairs in order, spend time with family, stock up groceries, whatever it was. We said for the next 2 weeks, take that time, and it was mandatory. So everyone on the team got at least one, some took 2, some took 3. And I said, none of that was going to count towards your PTO. That's your time to get your stuff together. And that really helped. And we did all of this in March. So come April, when things got worse in the environment around us, we could keep moving. So that was the other immediate change. And the third one was in terms of our customers. So as Shana mentioned, many of our customers, we pivoted what we were doing for them or moved timelines up and down to facilitate going purely online. One of our engagements, which is one of our largest ones, needed to get 80,000 of their end users online in 3 weeks instead of what was, I think, a 6-month roadmap. So there was some changes there. But also to Shana's point, digital transformation became really hot and heavy in a way that we knew it was going to happen, but our sales cycles got compressed and we found ourselves completely drowning in demand, and people are saying, what can you do tomorrow? What can you do tomorrow? So for us as a team, it was both being good to our customers, but also managing the burnout on the team's end. Those are some of them.
That's great. Yeah, Shane, is there a meeting you can remember, like just in what that felt like, or what was the strategy that worked?
Yeah, one meeting is hard to
All run
pin
together.
down. I think I was on uh, so many right away, and I had the got to work with fortune of working with some our head of HR, my boss, our CMO, our chief of staff, for our CEO on our communication strategy, and so we were on the phone every day figuring out what needed to be sent to our employees next. So there were a lot of those meetings, and then I think the other big change though, and this came on fairly early on with our marketing senior leadership team, was a realization that because everything was changing and we were going to have to stop doing a lot of things we were focused on to refocus around um, being a resource during this time to our customers, we ended up spinning up really quickly some we knew that we had to be very directive with our team as to what they needed to do each day, because also they were anxious, they were trying to figure out how they live in this new crazy world. And so we decided it was really important with our team that everybody knew every single day what was expected of them that day and what they were delivering that day. And so we started these daily stand-ups with quite a large team, and really just said, here's what needs to get done today. Like, yeah, it is impossible for us right now to all personally and professionally think 3 weeks out. So what needs to happen today? And then the next day, what needs to happen today? And I think that there was a lot of long days in the beginning. There still are a lot of long days for our team. Demand, and again, we are probably two examples on a very lucky companies that have high demand for their technology during this time. So we are fortunate, and I count myself very fortunate in that way. But we want to make sure that our team, when we knew that anxiety compared with and combined with the intense amount of work was going to be overwhelming. So we again every day focus on what they need to do that day, and then again are now starting to realize that we need to implement some forced time away. So forced Fridays, away, and for tomorrow our CEO declared a company holiday for everybody around the and so we're realizing now that being at home is increasing the amount of connectivity, connected time and time in front of computers. So we're making some shifts now. Sounds like Dee did with her team from day one. So we're really happy to be supporting our team as they're going through this really challenging time.
Pulling out a couple threads that you guys both hit on that I think are really helpful in any moment of strategic change. You both alluded to increased communication during whatever time period you're going through. If that it's a weekly one-on-one, maybe there's a daily check-in. If there's the monthly all-team thing, maybe it's a weekly thing. You're compressing the timeline of information to try to reduce a gap in knowledge as things move so quickly, and you're trying to be responsive. I'm sure we'll come back to that. I wonder if we could use maybe one last question lingering on COVID before we go a bit wider. Is there something that in the last 6 weeks you can point to as a little case study of something that this is a specific thing that we were not talking about in February and now we sure are, or this is a thing that we weren't doing and it sure is part of our strategy now? Is there something specifically that you guys have changed or updated that you can maybe walk us through how you got there, or
there is a thing that comes to mind. Shana, do you want to go first on this one, maybe?
Yeah, well, I actually thought, gave some thought to this, because with so much changing, I want to sort of hone in and narrow in on some specific examples. And I really very quickly, 3 quick examples. One, as we knew that our communities, we serve education communities and nonprofits as well, and they were in need of technology to facilitate, their livelihood. And so we actually ended up spinning up and giving away for free some of our products for K-12 public education and small nonprofits. That was a huge shift and took a huge rallying force to say, from legal to whatever, like, how do we get free software into hands of people that, in a way that we had not planned 2 days ago. Secondly, our product team actually completely shifted focus and spun up a new integration with virtual conferences, so that our board members could, with one click, access a Zoom meeting through our platform, so that we weren't sending around those Zoom to try to minimize Zoom bombing, I suppose, and make it even more safe and secure for them. So that was literally the product team just like pivoted, ran, and got it to market in like a week and a half. And then, I think that the last thing is just for me personally, I'm on this product launch that we're coming out with next week. And the software provides, frameworks, a way to look at, different frameworks around compliance and risk, and ESG. And we were really going to focus the launch around the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and really like, how you can, think about your sustainability and measure. And it's like, that we just decided almost immediately that was not going to resonate, and specifically because this solution is all about risk and compliance and business continuity, we needed a completely new go-to-market strategy for this. And so that has been sort of all consuming, and I'm really excited to get into market. But those are sort of kind of from the product to the team to the go-to-market. Those are 3 ways that we really had to quickly pivot.
And let's linger on it for a sec. Maybe take one of those, whichever you feel closest to, and maybe just like, do the journey of that meeting of someone saying, well, that thing we were going to do is no longer true. How about this? We drew on a whiteboard, and like, all right, well, how do we do that? Okay, we have to go over there. Do you have any little journey of one of those?
Yeah, I think that the one that I was closest to obviously is our product, the product launch for diligent assurance that's coming out, or has come out by the time this is aired. ESG was a huge focus. I mean, board diversity, ESG, diversity and ESG were the huge talking points earlier this year. I mean, that was, you couldn't get away from it in a great way. I think after the first week of COVID, we went back and I literally went through and I read our positioning statements and about going to market with ESG, and we got together as a team and just said, the opportunity is greater. ESG is very important. It's very important, but it is not the right message for the time that we're in. And people need to know that we can help in this other way at this specific time. And so it was, I'm not sure the whiteboarding session, the virtual whiteboarding session that it was probably one of our weekly, senior leadership team meetings with our company, and then also with our marketing team. And it was sort of during those conversations that the decision was made, and we went out and thought about how do we talk about this differently, and spun up all these new positioning statements, et cetera, to make it happen.
Dee, something that's really changed for you?
Yes, I think that the changes are, I think the changes have been a little more subtle than, so first and foremost, our target industries are life sciences and insurance. So in principle, they're not getting hit as much, like I said before. However, we do have a broader base of customers, and there were customers that we'd engaged with before that I would call more analog. If you're looking at the scale of customers in the digital transformation, from analog customers to like what you call digital first customers, the language intelligence platform serves the full gamut. So what we did is we went back to a lot of the analog customers that we had deprioritized in our list, saying, hey, I know that this is going to probably hit you much harder than most others. What can we do for you? So we, from a positioning statement, we really kind of repositioned ourselves as the software for a deskless workforce, where language intelligence essentially boils down to decision support for technical industries. That's what we primarily do. We deliver, technical content in an intelligent environment, and that impacts skilled trades, that impacts training, that impacts supply chain, that impacts a lot broader based industries, some of whom are more analog. So it was returning back. So I sent a range of email out to folks we had deprioritized and said, this is really important to us. Your mission is really economy critical. What can we do to help? And many of them got back to us and said, actually, we really need help doing this or that and the other. So there has been a slight shift in our focus. Number two is we deprioritized some of the industries we were stepping into. So we were about to launch in supply chain. And so we walked back from that. And all we've done is we've delayed it by 3 quarters. So it's not that it's been canceled, and even our intended customers were like, well, we just need to delay by a few months. Number 3 is the federal space came up in a big way where, that wasn't a space we were playing in before, but it certainly is doing some incredible work, not just around COVID-19 response, but actually about pandemic response and structuring that overall. And again, language intelligence is a big part of that effort. So we started looking at opportunities to really make a difference and have a positive impact. And last but certainly not the least, we do consider ourselves an intrinsic impact company. And the mission is really important. So the team was very, very, very insistent that we do something that is a give. So we set up covid19.sorcero.com, which is a misinformation prevention effort on our end, where we had physicians monitoring and validating questions and answers that were coming in from all over the world that spanned from symptoms to treatment to medical science to map to all of that. And that's been a big effort on our part for misinformation prevention, which, as you know, is one of the biggest risks in this world. So the product team and the engineering team, this is their project, this is their labor of love, and this is how we're giving back. But because what we do is not so much about making things free, this is sort of the best thing we could come up with is preventing misinformation around COVID. So we now have a microsite for Italy, one for Spain. So we're internationalizing that part, and we have a bunch of physicians who are actually validating every answer, making sure that there is no misinformation there. So those were some of the things that we've done as a team.
Whether it be a pandemic, another economic shock, a large client of yours disappears, like whatever dramatic change might require a strategy update and quick. You guys have any tips or tricks or what runs through your mind about how you know what are fundamentals that will never change no matter what happens? This is who we are as a company, this is who I am as a professional, versus we're all gonna start making face masks. Like, basically, how do you know how far do you change to adapt to the times? Anything come to your mind about, like, if someone from your team says, hey, we should be, making masks, how do you know, well, maybe it's a little too far out of our scope? What comes to your mind about what's going too far for changing strategy?
Shana?
Aha, all right. No. Mask making. I mean, I will listen. I bought a mask off of someone, I think, who just shifted their role to make a mask in this time. So I'm grateful for that. But
yeah.
For our company, I think you have to really trust in strong leadership during this time. Strong leadership from your senior most execs. Strong leadership from your board. Having a board that has board members that are have vast array of other experiences during this time. We have someone on our board who is on a board of Wynn, hotel and casino, and so different real estate companies. It's bringing this variety and breadth and depth of knowledge from our board to our leadership, I think, is really important. I also think it's really making sure to stay in touch with your customers and just be reading and be honest, like keep each other honest about your grand plans, and if that's with the time and resources you have, if that's really the place you should be focused. But it really starts with strong leadership, strong insights from your board, and cascading that on down, I think.
Yeah. I think very intentionally, you guys have two different really helpful perspectives. Dee, when it's on you, like, how do you're
the leader. It's all you.
It's always my fault. So I always start by saying that this is entirely my fault, and feel free to blame me for it, and I will apologize and I will fix. But I think the first thing that we did on the leadership side of it is show some vulnerability towards the team. It really, really helped. Like, one of the things about our team is because we are very much a product-led company and an AI company, the 70% of our team is engineering and product. So it's a certain bent of mind, it's a certain way of thinking. So it was really important for us in the leadership side to bring them up to where we were and find a common language. And you'll know that engineering does not speak the language of marketing and so on and so forth. So it was really, really, really important to show some of the language intelligence in the way we were communicating. That became very important. I think the second thing that we did was philosophically, Sorcero's approach to customers is that of being the trusted advisor. Because many of our engagements are multi-year engagements, are very scaled engagements. It's intended to be very deep rather than high volume necessarily. What we did is we used those relationships to have a slightly different kind of conversation with our customers. So we encouraged everyone on the team as they were talking to customers to actually do more of the human element. And that really helped craft our product strategy a little more and refine it a little more to say, okay, so we were already doing this and everything we do is on the cloud and it doesn't really matter if you're in your office or not on principle, but what are some of the pain points that have come up in this environment and will probably continue for a good long time that you haven't thought of before that maybe we could help you with? And that sort of consultative approach that we shifted our customer success a little heavily on the trusted advisor approach has really helped. So our customers are sort of coming back to us much more delighted and much more like friends rather than looking at it as a vendor. And I think that was the big change. The third thing that I always do, or I try and do in the middle of this kind of massive change, is give ourselves a 90-day reset. So what the company is doing as a company is to say we have 90 days. That started on the 1st of April because that's roughly when we closed the round, or, it was the first close, is we have 90 days to get our house in order for the next phase of growth. So we're actually slowing down some things and turning down some things and pushing some things away so that we can get our house in order for the next phase of growth. So, we have a board meeting. It's going to be a Zoom board meeting on the 5th, for example. So we'll see how that goes. But that's always the operating principle, that every time there's a major upheaval. So last year we rebuilt our entire platform from scratch. So we slowed down for that period. We slowed down sales so that product and engineering could build an amazing zero technical debt environment. So that's what we've done now. So we're in day 59 of slowing down to go fast.
I really like this idea of creating, essentially sprints or creating new time environments. That resonates with me. We had a big event series. We do a lot of our sales are very talent acquisition oriented. And though we think that'll return after a health crisis, we tweaked language around cost savings to retain talent. We took a lot more about the journalism we do. We're adding reporters. I think that's probably something we all go through. If we kind of created a 2-week period of, all right, everything we were doing last 2 days ago, as you said, Shana, now feels really tone deaf. We can stop all marketing or outreach that is about what we were talking about 2 days ago. Pause. In 2 weeks, we need to present back to the team. We have a monthly all-team call that has now become these like sprints of, the March one was, all right, we have entirely set things up in the next 2 weeks, and then we set that again. I wonder also, I think I had a few of these little, these ideas that were always sitting and knew we had to get to. And when everything got shook in the air, I reevaluated what felt more important or not. This literal show, for an example, doing a regular interview series around growth companies felt really like a good position for me as a CEO to do. That was always, we've been talking about this for years. And suddenly in this big shuffle, when other things I was doing I couldn't do anymore, were thrown out, this came in. Does any of that hit with you guys about, I went to my well of ideas and this one looks like really relevant now and these look dumb as hell. I'm going to remove that and move there. Did any of you do kind of like rejiggering of your own projects?
I just did a bunch. It's not just we collectively did a bunch. So I'm actually, this is very, very top of mind. So one of my co-founders, the COO, Richard, talks a lot about the axes of urgent versus important. I think in the stage of the startup's journey that we want to do everything. We want to do everything on time. And ideally, we'd like everything to be perfect. So we've already set ourselves up for failure. But, we are operating in that very intense environment, which does lead to burnout in a very non-trite manner. So, we're work-life balance, mental health, these things are very non-trite at Sorcero. They're just facts that we deal with. So I think what we did was we reevaluated what was in that top right quadrant between urgent and important. And we really, really looked at it. And it became very obvious immediately that some of the strategic planning that we had been holding off on and procrastinating on because it was easier to just do things than sit down and think about things and then, do that thought experiment and rethink assumptions. That became in that top quadrant. So, this is very related to why there is that 90-day slowdown to go fast, but it's really that is reprioritizing entirely what parts of strategy have we neglected, what parts of the organization needs to be tightened up, and using this time to actually do that because this is a great time to do it. Also, frankly, just taking into account that people are feeling really upset, and they're upset at all points in time. So when upset is the baseline, and frankly, you can't do anything about it, like I can't give them anything to make the upset go away. The only thing that we could do from the leadership standpoint is give them more power and more control over their day and what they were working on. So we let them tell us to a certain extent that this is what I care about the most. This is what is going to keep me motivated to keep being effective through a pandemic, and brought that up and aligned that with the company's roadmap and said, okay, so that falls in your urgent, important bucket. So that's been a lot of the work that's been happening. Even this morning, actually, we did a 90-minute all hands. So I just came out of that one as well, which is all focused on that quadrant and how do we get everything to move into that quadrant.
That's interesting. Shana, any quivers in your, you pulled out that you otherwise wouldn't have been?
Yeah, I think I shared a few earlier, specifically around product innovation. I think really establishing our CEO and his voice during this time as a leader was important and something we wanted to do more of, spend more time bringing his voice to the surface. And so that's, prompted us to try to do that more. But no, I think that Dee touched on something really, important, and it's sort of like, we specifically reprioritized, met with, my boss met with every, senior leader in the company and said, here are the three priorities that our team is going to be focused on for the next quarter. So all of your shiny balls and all the things that you maybe wanted to do, like that is not going to A, make us successful, but B, make our team feel the way they need to feel right in during this time. And so, which is focused and supported. And so I think it's for us, it's sort of been honing in on the priorities that we need our team to be rallying around, and then just giving a lot of grace to people that, have young kids at home and, are really, or family members that are sick, and trying to really stay in touch with everything that we do, with the fact that this is a really, really rough time for people, and trying to be understanding. And at the same time, we launched a new innovation and bottom-up innovation initiative that we've been working on for a while. And so everybody got to share, through videos what innovation meant to them. And new awards are coming out, and we're recognizing our team members in ways we never have before, giving tons of high fives on 15.5 and all of those things. So I think, yes, we brought, I think from an HR perspective, we brought forward a lot of ways that we can recognize people and make them feel good, even because we can't control the pandemic, but we can try to help people feel good about what they're doing, and supported.
We're coming up.
We did one more very important thing, and I think this is probably the most important. We now have a baking channel on our Slack.
Yeah. We have a quarantine cuisine channel, so
I'm just saying.
That's a good one too.
No, it's actually, we're coming up on time, but you just touched on something small that I want to hit to before my final question. I've had a number of questions, or conversations, I should say, but how you balance when something truly treacherous is taking place that will impact, I mean, in this case, the entire world, and millions of people are negatively impacted, mass unemployment, sickness, in this very perverse place where economic shocks are factually opportunities for companies to grab market share or tighten their messaging or like zone in on focus. I struggle with the morality balance of how can your company get stronger, better, smarter, faster at a time when so much pain is taking place. How do you guys even just like balance those those things? Are they just we just have to keep them separate as professionals? How do you guys? That might be a very personal question, but it's certainly something that I think about.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, I think that you know, keeping keeping your number one priorities number one is, and then encouraging your team to do that. I think just generally makes me feel better about, and I feel good that we can keep employing 1,000 people during this time, right? I mean, we're able to shift our strategy, hopefully protect our base, and maybe in some ways grow in these new areas with new products. But we're keeping, you know, a large swath of people employed, and you know, I think that's something to be proud of during this time.
Mm.
I think there are three things. One is personally going back to the mission, going back to the why. And that has been really, really helpful. It's kept me personally motivated to keep working. I mean, my parents are in India. They're 10,000 miles away. There's no way I can go to see them. So there is also that personal thing going on. I have lost people I know, and we're going to continue to do that. So through all of it, the only reason to keep working, to keep doing this in doing it in the way we are is the mission, the core reason, the why. So I think personally and the team has gone back repeatedly to the why. And that's really helped. I think number two is that for an early stage startup like us, the reason we get spectacular talent is because of the impact we're trying to make in the world and really the transformation we want to bring in. So taking every opportunity to make sure that everybody on the team feels like we're still on that track, that we're still the company that they thought they were joining, that it was still worth their time to give us 40, 60, whatever hours a week in the middle of a pandemic, I think is really important, was really great to do. And last but certainly not the least is prioritizing customers who needed immediate help. You know, where if we're working with a pharma company and they're working on something COVID related, we kind of push that up and say, hey, you guys, let's do this first. And I think those are three ways of sort of protecting one's mental health through this and finding a reason to not just stay productive, because I think that's, again, it's almost a stupid way of using the word, but to stay motivated and to keep building and to keep moving towards mastery. And I think at Sorcero, we're very philosophy driven, although our philosophy is a little more science fiction, fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons philosophy. But, you know, we always use the analogy of the questing party. So, you know, we're on a quest and it's a quest, and the dungeon master is the dungeon master. And as the questing party, we don't know what hurdles are going to come up in front of us. But assuming that we've built a team with the right composition of skill sets, no matter the monster, we're going to work collectively to, you know, and so that's kind of the framework we've been using a lot, and it's helped because, again, tech company, so science, sci-fi, video games, fantasy. So we use a lot of those grounding philosophies.
That's fantastic. We're right at time, but give me a super quick, what is, on the concept of updating strategy quickly, what is a tactic, small t, tactic you would want to arm people with on the way out? What's something you take into a meeting when you have to update strategy quickly? What's a mindset or an approach, something that you find effective?
I think for me, it's especially in meetings, it's what are we here to do in the next 30 minutes? Sorry, I should say, especially for meetings and when there are so many meetings right now, what are we here to do over the next 30 minutes? And like we've 3 minutes with where are we headed from here, and just being very specific about what we're out to accomplish next.
That's perfect.
For us, we're using scenario-based strategy and tactics session, and that's really helped because the leadership team is composed of product and engineering and marketing, and we're very different people, and we think differently, and our minds work differently. So the only way we can meet is usually in a world building scenario. So you build a scenario, and if the scenario is COVID, how do you solve for it? So we're using that framework a lot.
Incredible. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. This is the TWIJ Show. Look forward for future conversations about building better companies. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.